Hello everybody, and welcome back to the final day of the trial of Lana Skye. Right now, we are reasonably confident that the real culprit behind everything going on is Damon Gant, the district chief of police. Although we don't exactly know why, though. We've suspected, and have talked about during the investigation yesterday, that Damon wanted Lana in the prosecutor's office so that he could control the prosecutor's office, since she's the chief prosecutor. But we don't know exactly why Goodman was killed, or all the stuff behind his motivations. So I'm hoping we can find out more during the trial today. Alongside that, Emma continues to have some mysterious ties to the incident, the SL9 incident that took place 2 years ago, where Joe Dark attempted to kill and succeeded with Neil Marshall at the police station. And apparently Emma was a witness to that crime, and her fingerprints were on this piece of cloth that we found inside Gant's safe. But what exactly is her relation to that, and why is that important? We don't know. So let's see what we can find out today as we enter the final challenge. This is the defendant lobby, alright, but there's no defendant. I've been trying to reach Lana all morning. Where could she be? And where's Emma, for that matter? It almost seems as if we're alone. Something's been happening behind the scenes. Oh, it's Edgeworth. Edgeworth! Knowing you, you've already figured it out. Who the owner of the 7777777 ID number is, that is. Well, I have a pretty strong hunch. Yep. Looks like I'm not the only one who's figured it out. You know, the only reason this trial didn't reach a verdict yesterday is because there was still room for doubt regarding this ID record. If that number does belong to whom you suspect, then no doubt will remain. I kind of disagree with that, though, because we still haven't conclusively proven that that was... Well, no, I take that back. Because the autopsy report does list that it happened between 4 and 5:30 or 5:15 or something like that. And so we can only go that far back as far as who it could have been. But I feel like there is still room for some doubt. After all, he hasn't been officially charged with anything. True, not yet. In any event, once all doubt has been removed from that list, I can call for a ruling. 5 minutes, Wright, and Chief Prosecutor Skye will be found guilty. But she didn't do it! I figured you'd say as much. That's why I came here, to hear what you have to say. This is the first time he's ever done something like this. Lana's hiding something, and the only way we'll ever know the truth is to draw it out of her. The truth? Everything goes back to the SL9 incident. Don't be stupid. Today's the last day of the trial. We don't have time to reminisce about the past. That depends on you. If she's found guilty, you'll lose your only chance to find out what really happened. I'll think about it. See you in court, Wright. Open to working together, maybe? This is it. If I'm ever going to find out what Chief Gant has on her, it's now. Alright, here we go. Let's begin.
Court is now in session for the trial of Miss Lana Skye.
The defense is ready, Your Honor. The prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
Normally, this is when the prosecution puts forth its opening statement. But before that, the police chief has a proposal to make.
Uh-oh. I don't like the sound of that. Chief Gant. Morning, folks! How's everyone doing? Hey, Udgy, been back to the pool yet?
No, I've been drowning enough as it is in my work.
Oh, that's a good one. Don't think I can top that. If you don't mind me asking, Chief, exactly what is this proposal of yours? I don't like it when he pauses for a while like that. Lana, that is to say the defendant, has asked me if she could speak directly to the court. She wants to do what? Having heard what she intends to say, I feel she should be granted her request. In the end, it should save everyone a lot of time and trouble. That sounds really manufactured. What's this all about, defendant? I'd just like to make one simple request, and I'll be finished.
Well then, what's your request?
Your Honor, I'd like you to put an immediate end to this trial. Huh? I confess to all charges against me. On February 21st of this year, I murdered Detective Bruce Goodman in the underground parking lot of the prosecutor's office. No, Lana. Something tells me that she's being told to say this. You can't. Your Honor, the defendant's claim does not change the defense's plea. In that case, Mr. Wright, I no longer require your services. But Lana, Your Honor, I hereby forfeit my right to an attorney. And the prosecution may lack direct evidence against me, but it has sufficiently proven its case through testimony and circumstantial evidence. I would like you to render your verdict now, if you please.
Well, the defendant certainly has the right to self-representation. Her request is legally valid, although this is an unprecedented situation. Indeed, it appears there's no further need to continue this trial, even if Mr. Wright may feel otherwise.
This can't be happening.
It appears the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant...
Ooh, Edgeworth for the win. One moment, Your Honor.
Mr. Edgeworth!
The prosecution has not yet proven the defendant guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Any ruling at this stage would certainly be premature. Come now, Worthy. I understand this is a difficult time for you, but why don't you just be a good little boy and keep your mouth shut, Oh no, you do not talk to Edgeworth like that. I don't think I care for your tone, Chief Gant. What? Creating another fabrication to cover up your past mistakes. Sorry, but I'm no longer the naive little boy you would have me be. With this sudden confession from the defendant, it's obvious to me some kind of deal was struck behind the scenes. Some kind of deal, Not everyone operates as you do, Worthy. I thought so. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to change its first witness.
Oh? To whom?
As its first witness, the prosecution would like to call Miss Emma Skye. I request the court hears her testimony. Mr. Edgeworth, I'm exercising my right to self-representation. I don't think we need to continue. I don't care what you think, Miss Skye. The exposure of truth sometimes results in tragedy. However, no matter how tragic the truth may be, it would be an even greater tragedy to avert one's eyes from it.
Very well. The court shall grant the prosecution's request. That's okay with you, right, Chief Gant?
Worthy, you'll live to regret this. Mark my words. Miss Emma Skye, please take the stand. Looks like Edgeworth has decided to take the horse by the reins. Alright. Working together for the first time since the samurai case, right? At the very end when we were cornering the culprit there. Now then, witness, please state your name and occupation. My name is Emma. Emma Skye. My occupation? I'm Lana's little sister, and I want to be a scientific investigator. 2 years ago, you encountered the serial killer Joe Dark of the Joe Dark killings. Is this correct? Yes. I'm trying my hardest to forget about that, though. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to recall those events one more time.
Mr. Edgeworth, please remember that this trial concerns the murder of Detective Goodman. Is an incident that was resolved 2 years ago really all that relevant?
Yes, it most certainly is.
Well, okay then.
He sure gave in fast. Now, please testify about what happened to you 2 years ago. trip to yesteryear has finally begun. It's bound to lead to the truth behind this trial. Alright. 2 years ago. I was waiting in my sister's office that day. A man came running in and took me hostage. Neil Marshall rescued me, but I'll never forget what I saw in that instant. The man raised up his knife and stabbed Mr. Marshall in the chest.
It's a good thing you weren't harmed.
I passed out. I don't remember much.
That's understandable. However, please tell me, Mr. Edgeworth, what does this testimony have to do with Detective Goodman's murder?
That will soon become apparent, Your Honor. You've got to admire him for his courage, considering he has no evidence.
Very well. The defense may begin its cross-examination.
Yeah, this is quite an arc for Edgeworth. He went from making sure he had all the pieces of evidence that he thought were necessary to get his verdict, to now going by the seat of his pants and being willing to do something that's totally against his normal mode of operation. Okay, I didn't see any glaring contradictions in that, so I'm just going to press away here. 2 years ago, the defendant was a detective at the police department, correct? Yes, she was second in command under then Deputy Chief of Police Gant. My sister, she was the best detective ever.
Yes, I remember. Deputy Chief Gant and Miss Skye used to be quite the pair.
I believe they shared the same office. That's right. I'd always sit at my sister's desk and dream about playing that organ. And dream about torturing all the people on the second floor, right? I wanted to play it that day, too. The police department and the prosecutor's office held a ceremony that day. Lana promised to take me to dinner after she finished her work. Okay, I'll ask about that. A man. Yes, Joe Dark. He was a serial killer. Joe Dark was brought in for questioning on the day of that ceremony. We were desperate to get anything on him that would lead to an arrest.
When he saw his chance, he fled the room, right?
Upon fleeing the room, Dark proceeded to take the elevator. He must have been in a panic because the elevator was going up. Then he ran into Skye and Gant's office. There was a lot of noise coming from outside, so I opened up the door to have a look. That's when I saw him. Whoops. I want to know more about Neil Marshall rescuing him. What was the prosecutor doing there? That day, there were 2 people present during Dark's questioning. Deputy Chief Damon Gant and Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Almost forgot about Gant. Neil Marshall had just received the King of Prosecutors Award. Young and dedicated, he went straight to the questioning room after the ceremony.
I assume that would also be why he was the first to run after Dark.
When Dark grabbed me, I thought I was as good as dead. And that's when Prosecutor Marshall came running in? I don't clearly remember what happened then, but I'll never forget what I saw in that instant. Can you tell us about that? Mr. Marshall jumped on Dark. Just then, the lights went out.
The lights?
It was just about this time of year. There was a terrible storm going on and lightning struck nearby. So the electricity went out.
Wait a minute. If it was pitch dark in that room, you shouldn't have been able to see anything, right?
Right, but just then lightning flashed again outside. That sudden flash left an unforgettable image of the scene in my mind.
I see.
I told the detective about what I saw then. The detective? Yes, Detective Goodman. He was in charge of the case. Really? That's interesting. Well, we knew he was in charge of the case, but I don't think we knew that she told him about this. Detective Bruce Goodman, the victim. I definitely want to hear more about that. So you spoke with Detective Goodman about this 2 years ago. Yes, that's what's so scary about this trial. And you told Detective Goodman about what you saw? Yes, but at the time the words just wouldn't come out. That's why I drew a picture. picture. Yes, I think she mentioned that before. I think we've seen it before, too.
Well, Mr. Wright, have you heard enough?
I'm going to ask about this picture. This picture the witness drew, I believe it has a very important meaning. But the list of evidence I was given 2 years ago didn't contain a picture. Yeah, because Gant had it in his safe.
Witness, would you mind if we added this statement to your testimony?
Yes, Your Honor. I drew a picture of that scene once, but it seems to have been lost. Alright, well, thankfully for us, we have it right here. Mr. Edgeworth, this little girl put all her heart into drawing that picture. And yet you would insist on denying its existence?
Huh? Hey, I'm not the bad guy. All I'm saying is that, as the prosecutor for that case, I wasn't handed such a picture.
That may well be, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Behold!
This is the evidence list for the SL9 incident.
Please turn it over, Your Honor.
Turn it over? Turn it... Ah! What's this?
Yes, what is that? Hey! That's it! That's the picture I drew!
Indeed, two men appear to be wrestling here.
What's the meaning of this? What are you doing with that list? Me? Only the prosecutor in charge should have access to that list.
Huh? These lists, they're different from each other.
What?
It would appear, Mr. Edgeworth, the evidence list you were handed 2 years ago was incomplete.
Yeah, we discovered this yesterday.
These two lists fit together to form one. You can see the marks here where they were torn apart from each other.
So you see, Mr. Edgeworth, it's quite obvious what happened. 2 years ago, only half of the evidence in that case ever reached you.
What? What? Order! Order! But Miss Skye, why did you draw your picture on the back of such an important list?
Because that's what Detective Goodman handed me in the questioning room, Your Honor. Really now? Now that's interesting. Wait a minute. If this list was torn in half, then that means... Don't tell me Goodman was in on this stuff with Gant back then. Your Honor.
Are you alright, Mr. Wright? Your eyes are bulging from your head.
If the evidence list was torn in half, then there might be more of the drawing on the back of Mr. Edgeworth's list.
Yes, that's quite conceivable. Mr. Edgeworth?
It's possible. Let's see.
Is something wrong?
Do you even have to ask? Sorry, Your Honor. There is indeed something drawn on the back of my list. It's that thing! Oh no. I thought we were done being haunted by that music. No!
That's that thing! That thing that was dancing in the evidence room!
Clearly, this act of vandalism is the work of a certain chief of detectives. I guess he was out of scrap paper. Evidence list restored and updated in the court record.
Very well, witness. Will you please testify about this picture you drew 2 years ago?
Huh? Oh, yes, sir, Your Honor. What's wrong with Emma? She seemed to be thinking about something when she was looking at the picture. Yeah, that's interesting. Emma's picture. Alright. I'm gonna just look at something real quick here. I'm curious to see what this looks like when it's put together. Okay. I don't know if they were trying to suggest that this was related to this, but this looks distinct. So I'm guessing this was Gumshoe drawing the the Blue Badger here, since this is oriented completely differently from this. So I don't think Emma drew the entire thing. Alright. This is the picture I drew 2 years ago. The flash of lightning was so bright, all I could see were shadows. After that, I must have fainted. This picture shows exactly what I saw in that instant. Okay.
To think a flash of lightning could burn such an image in your mind.
Thanks to that, though, she was able to show us exactly what she saw.
Well, I don't see any contradictions here. This clearly shows Joe Dark about to murder Prosecutor Neil Marshall. The defense may now begin its cross-examination.
Wait, did I say Gumshoe a minute ago? I meant the detective chief, because he was the one who came up with the Blue Badger idea, right? Gumshoe was the one who was working on it in the evidence room. That's what the breakdown of how that all worked out. Alright. I'm just gonna look at all these first. So, one thing I'm really curious about here is, why is it that this does not look like a knife? This looks like a ruler or something. I'm gonna ask about this. Sorry for asking so many times, but are you sure you drew exactly what you saw? Of course, this is the exact scene. It wasn't influenced in any way from your talks with the detectives? Are you insinuating we somehow manipulated her memory, Mr. Wright? No, of course not. I better watch out or you might find some way to cut my salary. I drew this picture before I heard anything from the detectives, so I don't think anyone's story would have influenced me.
Mr. Wright, is there something that's bothering you about this picture?
Huh? Oh, well... Uh-oh. That's strange. She claims this is exactly the scene that was imprinted in her mind. And yet, there's clearly a contradiction here. There is? Okay. I have to believe that there's something wrong with this. Because of that little... that little interlude there at the end. I'm gonna look at this real quick. A clear handprint can be seen on the leather cloth. The print belongs to Emma. I think I'll keep this information to myself. Okay, that's it. What happens if we turn it over? Just nothing over there. Alright, so what would contradict that, I guess? Is it the stab in the back part? Maybe it's the knife tip part that we were wondering about, because we know that there's a knife tip in Neil Marshall, but there's no knife tip there. Maybe that's what it is? I'm gonna try that. See if that's the correct answer. Ah! Yes! Perfect. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this picture the witness drew contains a blatant contradiction. What? But I still remember it just like it was yesterday.
Mr. Wright, perhaps it would be faster if you simply pointed out this contradiction for us.
Uh-oh. I hope I'm right about what part it is.
What part of this picture contradicts the autopsy report?
Alright, let's point here. The contradiction, of course, lies here. Take a look at the knife the man is holding. Okay, this seems specific enough that it's probably right. If you look closely, you can see its tip is broken.
Even I don't have to look closely to see that, Mr. Wright.
But Mr. Wright, look at the evidence. See the murder weapon? Its tip is broken too.
If I recall, the tip of the knife was found broken off in the victim's body.
Yeah, so that would have happened after the fact. It was a conclusive piece of evidence that proved Joe Dark was the murderer. I'm afraid it's not so simple, Emma. And where, pray tell, could you possibly see a problem? It's obvious, really. The victim suffered a single stab wound to the back. If the victim was only stabbed once, then the murder weapon should not yet be broken. Exactly.
Ah! What's the meaning of this?
Perhaps the knife was broken beforehand. Sorry, but I'm afraid that's not possible. The tip of the knife was found inside the victim's body. If it was broken beforehand, it couldn't possibly wind up there.
That's right. What does this mean?
The tip of the knife was undeniably discovered within the victim's body. The only possible explanation is the witness's memory is mistaken. That's why I asked her so many times if she was sure she remembered correctly. I believe you were annoyed at the time, but she was sure she remembered correctly. But there's no other way to explain this inconsistency. Oh, I can think of at least one other way, and that's that maybe that wasn't actually the murder weapon. Not so fast, Mr. Edgeworth. There is another explanation. Ooh, is Phoenix going to be on the same page? Have you forgotten already? About a little something called falsified evidence? We were treading on thin ice, right? All I'm saying is that this broken knife tip might be the piece of evidence that was forged. You can't deny the possibility. No. Ah!
Order! 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 Are you saying the investigation really was corrupted?
Your Honor, please allow me to once again go over the events that took place the day of the murder. The police department and the prosecutor's office were holding a ceremony that day. After receiving the King of Prosecutors Award at the ceremony, Neil Marshall questioned Joe Dark along with Damon Gant. During his questioning, Joe Dark fled the room. Prosecutor Marshall chased after him and was killed by Dark. It is my belief that somewhere in this story, there is a lie. I'm not lying. That man really was holding up a broken knife. If that's true, then there's no other way around it. This could not have been the actual murder weapon. There must have been another broken knife.
What are the chances of there being two broken knives?
Another broken knife besides Joe Dark's? Could there have been one? No, there is another one, and I think I know what it is. If the witness is this adamant about the accuracy of what she saw, it can't just be explained away by a simple observational error. Mr. Wright. In that instant, Emma really did see a broken knife.
I assume, then, that you have some information about this other broken knife? If so, please feel free to enlighten us.
The murder weapon was already broken prior to the murder. There's only one way. Take a look at this. Here's the real murder weapon. Alright. Let's take a look at everything here. So it's not that. I'm gonna present this. The answer lies in the past. 2 years in the past. Right here inside this picture. This is a picture of the awards ceremony. Ah!
What is it, Mr. Edgeworth?
Looks like he realized it too. It's the broken murder weapon. Notice the award prosecutor Marshall is holding. That's a broken knife! As we earlier concluded, the knife in the drawing was not Joe Dark's knife. That being the case, the knife the witness saw was in all likelihood from this award.
Order! Order! Order!
Neil Marshall was awarded King of Prosecutors that day. As an award, he was given this broken shield and knife. When he chased after Joe Dark, he pulled out this knife. Being a prosecutor, he did not carry a pistol. This broken knife was the only weapon he had in this dangerous situation. But that can't be. Oh, and why not, Mr. Edgeworth? Because if the King of Prosecutors Award knife was the murder weapon, then the murderer and the victim would be reversed. That's a good point. What do you mean? I mean, this man raising a knife would have been Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Oh. Oh!
But the prosecutor was the one who actually died.
That's true. What's going on here? It seems Mr. Wright has been a bit too eager to jump to conclusions. Uh-oh. Wait! I remember now. I remember everything. Witness? Mr. Edgeworth. What is it? Could you show me your evidence list again, please?
His list? The one with that picture scribbled on the back?
I knew it. This picture, I'm the one who drew it. Wait, how? I thought the Blue Badger was not invented until, like, recently. What? You drew that? That's right. The list wasn't torn in half at the time I drew this picture. Okay, so it wasn't drawn like... Okay. I'm trying to figure out why it would be, like, sideways, because I don't think we've seen that shape in that room. I mean, that's where the window would be. All this time I've been trying so hard to forget. I must have locked this part away deep inside me.
Perhaps it would be best if we added this to the witness's testimony. Would you please tell us what you recall in this guy?
Yes, Your Honor. First the knife mix-up, and now the Blue Badger? This should be interesting. Alright, Emma's recollection. When I saw that man raise his knife, I panicked and rushed toward both of them. I think I knocked away the man with the knife. Just then there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the Blue Badger! He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow. I still say the Blue Badger is impossible.
This is certainly most unusual.
Try impossible? The chief of detectives hadn't even designed him. Design, present tense? Him until this year. That would mean he didn't even exist 2 years ago.
Yes, well, the defense may now begin its cross-examination.
Stop, please. Don't pursue this any further. Whoa, that is the first time we've seen Lana in that pose, that desperate. Lana?
What's the meaning of this? Please remain seated in the defendant's chair.
But you can't do this. I've already confessed to the crime. Why can't you just leave it at that? Chief Prosecutor Skye. We've already come this far. It's too late to turn back.
Silence! The defense will now begin its cross-examination. Bailiff, please detain the defendant.
It seems we're finally getting to the core of the matter. Alright. I'm curious if, do I just present the Blue Badger here? And it can't be that easy, right? Wait. Press the wrong arrow key. There we go. No. Alright, let's just press everything. I was curious if that was going to work, but I guess not. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay. Whoops. Nope, I want to press E. Or Q. When you say that man, I assume you refer to Joe Dark? Yes, at least I think it was him. You think? All I could really see were the shadows. The power outage that immediately preceded the incident is also documented in the prosecutor's office reports.
So then you...
Okay. Why would you do something so dangerous? What else could I have done? He was about to stab Mr. Marshall. She seems convinced that Dark was the one holding the knife. But as we've just theorized, Mr. Marshall was the one holding the knife. Well, I didn't know that at the time. When that Dark guy knocked me down, all I could think was, I gotta help that other person. This one seems a little uncertain. What do you mean you think? It all happened so fast, and I was in shock. I don't remember everything clearly. What I did, it's all kind of a blur. Miss Skye was almost killed before she was witness to a murder about to take place. With so much happening in a matter of seconds, a little disorientation is only natural. I saw the man about to stab the other person, who I thought was Mr. Marshall. I knew I had to stop the man with the knife.
What you did was very brave, young girl. So then what happened next?
Okay. Maybe we just need to press this. Are you sure about this? Of course, see? I even drew a picture of him here. But it was the chief of detectives who thought up this hideous beast. And that was just this year. The Blue Badger didn't exist 2 years ago. This is all quite verifiable. I know it sounds strange. I was surprised too when I saw him at the police department. I had this nagging feeling that I had seen him before somewhere. Yeah, we had, I remember us hearing a comment about that when we first saw the Blue Badger. Now I finally remember. Oh, brother. Just when you thought that that thing had caused enough commotion.
Tell us, where in the room did you see him dancing?
Alright. His shadow? So you mean you didn't actually see his face with its winning smile and all? That's right, but I still remember it. He had 3 creepy horns. This is pointless. That thing couldn't have possibly existed 2 years ago. The witness must be mistaken. That may well be, but what's important is what caused her to think she saw what she did. Oh? And I suppose you have an explanation? I have an idea of what she saw. If so, then by all means, please tell us what the shadow really was. I only remember this because this part is really fiddly. Who is this? Oh, I accidentally skipped something there. Who is this Blue Badger really? I just might know. The Blue Badger hadn't even been dreamt up when Emma drew this picture. Yet she's certain she saw a shadow. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the defense's belief that on that fateful day 2 years ago, there indeed was something that looked similar to the Blue Badger. Something that is now sitting in this very room.
Mr. Wright? In this room? Very well, Mr. Wright. What is it that the witness saw in that instant? Please show us what this mysterious Blue Badger look-alike.
I believe it is... where are you? This. The mysterious Blue Badger was in fact this.
But that's... what exactly is that?
I believe it's some sort of jar. But Mr. Wright, that doesn't look anything like the Blue Badger. Indeed it doesn't. As it stands now, it's just a plain jar. However, what if we were to change our viewpoint? Our viewpoint? I've got to show them the correct angle to look at this from. Yeah, this part, I remember this was really annoying. And it's like one of the few things I remember about this case from before. Hang on. Oh, I see, that's how you... No, 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 no! Whoops, hang on. Just the right angle, okay. I did not mean to hit the E key. Okay, so let's do up and down. I'm going to try to see if I can get the 3.
Okay, I need to get that center thing. Is it like that? Or like that? Let's try that. What? I thought that was pretty much exactly the... Okay. Yeah, I don't remember, like, a lot of things about this case, but I do remember this part. Like, this is one of those things that's permanently etched in my head now. Maybe we need to make that a little more pronounced. Let's try that. No! Alright, if I can't get it on this try, I'm going to try to find a solution to this. I'm certain it's something in this vein, right? It has to be centered. Like, up here it's just too much. Like, the top part is not pronounced. It's that little... that part right there. Don't tell me it has to be, like, all the way up like that. Okay. I'm gonna have to find an actual screenshot of this thing. This is a little annoying. Alright. Okay, apparently it's like... That's really interesting. Okay. It's a little... Nope! I did not mean to hit the E key! I'm so sorry about that. Okay. You gotta make the bottom almost flat, so like the shape is not... I'm trying to see if I can figure out how to do that, though. But yeah, I think the... Whoops. I think the key to this is you gotta get... You gotta get the bottom part to not really show. Unless you're supposed to do something like this, where you turn it... Maybe you're supposed to turn it around first. Maybe that's what we were missing. Yeah, there. That's more like it. I think that's the solution. There we go. Well, is this a miracle or what? No one can possibly deny this jar's resemblance to the Blue Badger. No, it can't be. The Blue Badger has terrorized us once again. Order! Order! The defense has proven its claim. The mysterious Blue Badger witnessed on the day of the crime was actually this. Although we all enjoyed Mr. Wright's dramatic performance, one question remains. What's your point? What do you mean? So that badger thing was actually just a jar. That doesn't change anything. I'm afraid that's where you're wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. You see, this changes everything. Indeed? Very well then. Please tell us, what's different now that we know the witness saw this jar? Ooh, now that's a good question. Is it the murderer? Because I don't know what the location would have to do with it. Allow me to take these in turn. At the moment of the murder, the witness saw this jar. At a very specific angle, I might add, Mr. Wright. Yes, well, knowing this, where could she have seen this jar? Where? The location of the jar is shown in the picture taken on the day of the crime. Oh! I forgot about that. That's right, so the location would be the thing, right? It's on a shelf in the office of Damon Gant. But the body was found lying near Lana Sky's desk. The witness testified so herself. Yes, and it is these two facts that reveal what actually transpired. You see, the struggle between Dark and Marshall did not take place in Lana Skye's office. It happened on the other side of the room, in Chief Gant's office. Are you implying the murderer moved the victim's body from Damon Gant's office to Lana Skye's office? That'd be quite a feat, considering that we sprayed luminol over there and didn't find anything yesterday. But we did find it in the other side where Lana is. Or was. Yes. Why would he do that? There's no reason. Exactly. If there wasn't a reason, he wouldn't have gone through the trouble. The only logical conclusion is that there was a reason. Do you know what that reason was, Mr. Wright? I finally figured it out. So this is why Lana tried to stop the trial. It's too late to quit now, though. Please recall the witness's testimony. She said she knocked away the man who was holding up the knife. In the next instant, the jar was hit and flew through the air. Now tell me, what could have sent the jar flying? That would have had to have been the impact the man made when he was knocked into the wall? Ladies and gentlemen, if I may draw your attention to this picture once more. If the man was knocked in the direction of the shelf the jar was sitting on, what would he have hit? That's Emma's voice, not the judge's voice. The suit of armor! Holding a very sharp and dangerous looking sword! Oh yeah. We don't have that in the court record. Yes. And since the man who was knocked into the armor was carrying a broken knife, he would have had to have been Neil Marshall, wielding the King of Prosecutors trophy. No, Mr. Wright, you can't be thinking. Yes. There is another possibility of what actually transpired in that room. Another possibility? Of course, the perpetrator would have had no idea, but nevertheless, I don't know if I can go through with this. You don't mean... Oh no. I think I just had the same thought. Mr. Wright, what's the matter? If events took place as the defense theorizes, then the outcome is obvious. In that moment, assuming the man Emma Skye knocked away was actually Prosecutor Neil Marshall, you mean Mr. Marshall died because of me? No! Was this why Lana was so eager to not let us go through this? I never imagined her testimony would lead to this. So it was the witness who took the victim's life? And then proved so with her own testimony? This is unprecedented. Lana, what are you saying? I'm sorry, Miss Skye, but given the circumstances... Joe Dark murdered Prosecutor Marshall. How can you think it was Emma? How dare you try to pin the crime on her? Imagine that coming from you. If you recall, it was you who admitted to forging evidence 2 years ago. The reason you moved Prosecutor Marshall's body was to keep anyone else from finding out about what Emma did, wasn't it? I assure you, Mr. Edgeworth, I have no idea what you're talking about. If you hope to have anyone believe your insane allegations, I'm afraid you're going to have proof. Tell me, do you have any conclusive evidence that proves my sister killed Neil Marshall? Evidence? I'm willing to bet you don't. Yes, it certainly would be difficult to prove this with evidence. If we don't have evidence, then we'll have to rely on testimony. I'm afraid that won't work in this case. Both parties involved in the incident are dead. We certainly can't get dead people to testify. I kind of disagree. I mean, we have, like, spirit mediums and stuff in this game, so... yeah. This has all been a wild goose chase from the beginning. Touche, Miss Sky. Of course, that only leaves us with one possibility. You mean there's still another possibility? What do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth? I mean the possibility that the victim has left us a message. For better or for worse, Mr. Marshall did not die instantly. He may have left behind the name of the person who took his life, in one manner or another. That's impossible. Well, Mr. Wright, this is the only possibility left to you. A message from the deceased. Does such a message exist? I've got to think back to the court record. The real murderer's name that victim may have left behind. I think I know where it is. This message from the deceased is already in our possession. Mr. Wright, will you stop at nothing to prove my sister a murderer? Do not be mistaken, Miss Sky. Our purpose is not to accuse Emma of any crime. There is only one thing we seek: the truth. No matter how painful it may be. Now then, Mr. Wright, please show us the piece of evidence that conveys a message from the deceased. I believe it is our good friend, the unstable jar. Although a lot of it's been wiped away. This is the message left by the deceased. This is that blue badger from before, right? Oh, is he going to just speak the killer's name? If that thing could, I'm sure it would. Looks like everyone's forgotten this is just a jar. A message was left here, on the surface of this jar. What do you mean? If you look closely, you can see a faint trail of blood on this jar. It looks like someone wiped the blood away. Yes, but notice, for some reason, the blood on some of the fragments was not wiped away. Yes, there is a line here, drawn in blood. So what you're saying is these dots were once lines. Prosecutor Marshall did not die instantly. He used the few precious moments left him to leave behind a message. One that someone apparently wiped away. The blood must have seeped into the jar where the lines changed directions. Precisely so. All we need to do is connect these points, and the victim's message will become apparent. No. Mr. Wright, what kind of message did the victim leave for us? Your Honor, I believe these bloodstains will reveal to us the answer. I've got to connect these dots to make letters. There's only one thing the victim would have written, given the circumstances: his murderer's name. Yeah, I think we can kind of see what's going on here. Alright. Okay, I guess I don't need to do that. Interesting, though, we did make the observation that it looks like this fragment, which was the one that was in the safe, had all this still intact on it, whereas this other stuff didn't. It's a defense attorney's duty to prove their client's innocence. That's why all I've been thinking about is saving Lana. After all my efforts, I never thought it would turn out like this. Emma. So this is the final message Prosecutor Marshall left behind. Of all people, she may not have meant it, but in the end, the one who took the victim's life was Emma Sky. Seaworthy? Can't say I didn't warn you. Chief Gant. Do you understand the implications of what you've done? What? What are you talking about? 2 years ago, Joe Dark was sentenced to death. He was convicted because of his final murder. I believe you were the prosecutor in the case, were you not? Ah! Yes, Worthy. Because of you, an innocent man was sentenced to death. I wouldn't say he was innocent. I mean, maybe in that case, but not innocent otherwise. Not only that, but you used forged evidence to ensure his conviction. But Joe Dark really was a serial murderer. That's undeniable. I'm afraid that's not important. Didn't you know? We aren't defenders of justice. What? We're merely keepers of the law. Sentencing a man to death is no light matter, even if there wasn't any cover-up or evidence forgery. Ultimately, the responsibility falls on the prosecutor in charge. Despite what anyone may say, this fact cannot be denied. What's going on at the prosecutor's office? They might have sent an innocent man to his death. How can he just stand there like it was his fault? Order! 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 The gavel's pounding fell on deaf ears. Unable to settle the crowd if the judge declared a recess. Where this trial is headed, no one knows. To be continued. Woo! Wow, that took quite a turn. Can't say I was expecting Emma to be in the spotlight like this. But hopefully, we'll be able to find out the truth next time. So take care, everybody, and I will see you then. And thanks again for watching. Hope you all enjoyed yourselves today. Catch you next time.